Thank you so much for joining, everyone. This is webinar number 5 of Aging Gracefully for Longevity for Women. And thank you so much, Dr. Saxena, Jocelyn, for doing this. This has been an absolute incredible journey for all of us. And I'm sure that we will create so much more value. So over to you with that, Jocelyn and Dr. Saxena.
Welcome back, everyone. We're going to continue our journey towards menopause wellness. Just to recap from our last session, Dr. Saxena discussed sexual health and intimacy with sensitivity and openness. And we hope that you gain some insight and clarity into how to improve self-care and also boost confidence with your partner. So today we're going to focus on health and vitality after menopause. So I will lead to Dr. Saxena. Anything you'd like to comment on before we start our first question?
Yeah, we primarily are talking about, we say after menopause, but many of the lessons that we have are just as important in the perimenopause space. And I'll also kind of link along the continuum, because women, we don't know where you are, but I guarantee wherever you are, you may have a friend, a daughter, who might be earlier in the spectrum of this transitioning phase. And perhaps you want to think about, oh, could this help my daughter who is 35 understand how she should be preparing, like you invest in your future at 65, starting at 35 for your bones. And so I don't want you to think that if you're not menopausal, that this is not a useful webinar. It's just that many of the issues we talk about are postmenopausal, but we have to prep for them as early as possible.
Okay, so our first question, how does menopause affect long-term health like bone and heart health?
Great question. So let's talk about the kind of main zones of the woman's body that can change. Now, listen, every part of your body changes, but we're going to talk about long-term health. So what are the things that can really put a dent in a woman's longevity and her health span? So we don't just want women to live long, we want them to live healthy. So your health span is the amount of years that you are living healthy. Your lifespan is just how many years you are alive. So our questions are designed to help you understand, well, I should say our answers are designed to help increase your health span in the long term. So here's some areas that I'd like to talk about today with Jocelyn's support. We're going to talk about bone health. We're going to talk about heart health. And I'm probably going to throw in, Jocelyn, a bit of brain health in here. Okay, so bones, heart, brain. Does that mean there are not other things that are going to affect us like weight and all that? Of course, but they're going to probably play into bone, heart, brain. Okay, so menopause is when our ovaries have stopped making estrogen and progesterone. And so if your estrogen levels remain low because you have chosen not to do hormone replacement therapy, or you cannot do hormone replacement therapy for a variety of reasons we've discussed in previous webinars, that decline in estrogen is going to escalate bone loss. So we generally gain our good bone density in the first 30 years of life. And then after age 30, 35, most of us start a gradual decline in our bone health. And then it just goes steeper down once the ovaries stop making estrogen. So bone loss. And why is that important? Because osteoporosis and having fractures in the vertebral column, which is your spine, or in your hips or pelvis, those are very dangerous. And these can be prevented by understanding what you can do for yourself. So estrogen, super essential for bone health. Estrogen is also important for cardiovascular health. So estrogen is our youth signal. I've lovingly called her Barbara Streisand before. And as this estrogen decreases over our lifetime, that decrease affects our brain, our body composition, and that also will increase our risk for heart disease. So estrogen being a youth signal, it's sometimes harder to keep weight off with low estrogen states. Estrogen is also a motivational kind of hormone. So we reduce our physical activity many times in menopause. And then estrogen, if it's in the right balance with insulin, can actually help reduce your risk of heart disease. And last but not least is the brain. There have been studies, we've mentioned this, out of Cambridge University, where they looked at the impact of low estrogen on the brain functions. And two main categories of brain functions are, number one, cognitive health. That means your ability to think, focus, strategize, be productive from a cognitive thinking brain. And then the other part of your brain I'm going to call the feeling brain, mental health brain. So mood, perspective, outlook, motivation, these kinds of things estrogen supports. So as estrogen level goes down, we'll see that your risk for cognitive decline and for mood imbalances starts to increase. Now, there's definitely things you can do with diet, exercise, in addition to hormone replacement therapy, specifically bioidentical, that can mitigate these risks. And we'll talk about those more here next. But again, bone, heart, brain is what I want you to be thinking about.
I'm going to focus a little bit on healthy diet right now and exercise. Are there specific strategies that women can do to help support, especially to help support bone health and cardiovascular health?
Yes. So what's lovely is what helps bone health also helps heart health. And what, if you have been paying attention to some of the shifting in exercise physiology education for women in this perimenopausal and menopausal stage, then that's not to say that women in their 30s that are not perimenopausal can't benefit. In fact, I think it's still useful advice for them. But the shift is going from the Jane Fonda spandex aerobics classes, which is cardiovascular dominant. If you're around during that time, that's what we thought exercise was. Like, stick on your spandex, get to a little fitness facility and, jump and bob and all that. And that's not where the money is anymore. The money in terms of long-term health span is in strength training. And let's be more specific. It's not just strength training with light weights. I'm sorry, I wish it was. It's strength training with the heaviest weights that you can lift safely and in the correct form. So if we do heavy strength training, and it doesn't have to be a lot, ladies, heavy strength training will build bone, because when those muscles are being stressed, meaning that they're having to work to, let's say, do a squat, well, those muscles will pull on your bones, and that tension between the muscle and bone is going to tell the bone, like, you better ship up here, you better get strong, Mr. or Mrs. Bone. So the bone becomes stronger in response to exercise. Now, how does it become stronger? We'll talk about. It needs certain nutrients. It needs minerals like calcium and magnesium. It needs a guide called vitamin D with K2, D3K2, which will tell the minerals where to go. So vitamin D by itself tells calcium to get out of the bloodstream. When you put K2 with D3, it tells the calcium, please go to the bone. Don't go to the arteries and calcify the plaque. So D3K2, essential for women. Jocelyn and I work in Tampa, Florida. Okay, we're in sunny Florida, and a majority of our women do not hit their vitamin D goals without supplementation. I think it's because we'd like to think we're in sunny Florida, but most of the time we're in AC'd home or workspace. We are not out like our ancestors in the sunlight. And for those of us that have a little color in our skin, that can block the sun tremendously. So just being exposed to sunlight the way we do in modern times is very different than the way our ancestors were exposed to sunlight. So we've got the D3, the K2, the calcium, the magnesium. I don't think you need to take supplements for all of it. I find that D3, K2, you almost always need a supplement. Calcium, on the converse, I think we should try to get through calcium-rich foods. If you can tolerate dairy, great. If you can't, dark green leafy vegetables are a wonderful way to get healthy calcium into the body. So we've got strength training, we've got nutrition, and then the other thing that I think is super important is healthy fat. Okay, so healthy fat are things that are called omega-3s. They're anti-inflammatory. The best source of omega-3s, if you're a non-vegetarian, are things that are called smash fish. Okay, that's the acronym, SMASH. S stands for salmon, M stands for mackerel, A stands for anchovies, the next S stands for sardines, and the last H is herring. So these are cold water fish that generally store up, or they make omega-3s. So when you eat them, you get a concentrated version of omega-3s. Now, if you're an ethical vegetarian or vegetarian and you cannot eat smash fish, then you'll have to use plant sources, but they tend to be 10% of the potency of an animal source. So you would need more or take a supplement that's whittled it down. But nuts, certain seeds, these might be sources. And you can ask questions in the chat, Kruti, for sure. We'll have it in the last 15 minutes. But yeah, a vegetarian's ability to gain omega-3s is hard. And we'll talk a little bit about what vegetarians can do to help their good fat intake. All right.
We mentioned the supplements, right? Calcium, magnesium, and vitamin D. Can we be a little bit more specific on each one? We already talked about vitamin D. And I wanted to also mention, I think that the reason why we have vitamin D deficiency down here in the South is because of sunscreen, right? We're told to wear sunscreen for protection against skin cancer, and that decreases the absorption of vitamin D or the conversion into an active vitamin D.
That's right.
Okay. Good.
So yes, yeah. So things like living in offices and houses where the sun doesn't hit against your skin is the main reason we don't have enough vitamin D. The second is that we block the vitamin D ability to come from the sunlight because we put sunscreen on our clothing. You know, like most of us are not nude when we go out. And you know, if you think about our caveman ancestors, they had a lot more skin showing against the sun. Now, let's talk about, let me just finish up D3K2. What we find is that you want to get a quality supplement. We can work on getting that link in the chat in WhatsApp. We want to use ones that have been vetted. Okay. Like, listen, if you are going to go get a surgery done, you're not just going to go to any old surgeon. You are going to research the surgeons and use the people that you think have done a good job. So when we give you a supplement recommendation, we have seen through thousands of patients that it is helping raise the vitamin D level. And then we're seeing improvements in bone density from the ones that we're recommending. So D3K2, I find that most women need 5,000 to 10,000 international units a day. Vitamin D is best taken with food because it's a fat-soluble vitamin, so it'll get absorbed better when you take your vitamin D3K2 with food. And then calcium, I think, is possible to get through diet alone. We've got to be careful with cheap calcium supplements. So what I recommend is you Google calcium-rich foods, and then you look at the milligrams, and you might find that certain foods you like to eat could be dense in calcium, like these dark green leafy vegetables. Like instead of eating iceberg lettuce, eat a kale salad because it has a lot more calcium. So you'll get calcium in from greens, which is super healthy for most people. Now, magnesium. Now, I'm going to say this. I see a lot of South Asian friends of mine here, okay? Many of which may be vegetarian. I know so many vegetarians who don't eat vegetables. Okay, they don't eat vegetables. They eat their breads, and they eat the rice, and they eat lentils, but not 5 to 9 servings of quality vegetables. And if you don't get vegetables in with a 2-to-1 ratio over fruits, you are missing out on magnesium, potassium, all those nutrients that are supposed to come from 5 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables. So if you're not able to get that in through your diet, we might need to give you a magnesium supplement or you look at magnesium-rich foods and prioritize them. So calcium, I think you can get through diet, especially if you can have dairy and then eat other vegetables. Magnesium, I find, Jocelyn, I don't know about you, but I find that most people benefit from supplementation from magnesium because it also helps with muscle tightness. And if you're going to go do heavy strength training or even, more rigorous yoga, you're going to get some sore muscles. And magnesium is super wonderful for, becoming this big, tight, big muscle spasm after workouts. So let's see, we talked about those three.
And for sleep, magnesium does help with sleep,
which is a big problem as we get older, especially during the perimenopause, menopause transition. So let me just do a little quick thingy on magnesium. Magnesium is a mineral, just like calcium. Magnesium relaxes muscles, calcium contracts them. So if you eat a lot of dairy, you're getting a lot of contraction signal. And if you don't eat a lot of vegetables, you don't get the relaxation signal. So if you need we all need the relaxation signal, okay? Especially for heart health, by the way. If your heart can pump down, but it can't relax. So if the pump gets small, but it can't open up completely, well, then you've got this little small pump and it doesn't pump as well when it can't open and close, open and close. So magnesium, potassium open, calcium contracts. For magnesium oxide and magnesium citrate are good for relaxing bowel muscle. Okay, so bowel muscle, if you're constipated, it needs to be relaxed. Magnesium citrate, magnesium oxide. So that carrier that's attached to the word magnesium tells you where the magnesium is going to stay. Magnesium citrate and oxide will stay in the bowels primarily. So it's good for constipation. Now, if you see magnesium glycinate or magnesium chelate, and Jocelyn, I wonder if you wouldn't mind typing these words in the chat so they can see the words. So magnesium glycinate and chelate, they can cross through the bowel lining and brings the magnesium into the bloodstream. And when it crosses the bowel and it gets into your bloodstream, all your blood vessels are muscular little tubes. So glycinate and chelate are good for relaxing blood vessels. So they're good for blood pressure issues and also muscles like your skeletal muscles, like your biceps and your triceps and your quadriceps and your hamstrings. So, that's called skeletal muscle. So glycinate and chelate are good for body. Okay, so remember the citrate and oxide are for bowel. Glycinate and chelate are for body. And then L-threonate is the one that goes past the body and it crosses the blood-brain barrier, which there's like a door that says, no, you're not allowed in the brain. Only certain things are allowed to cross into the brain. And magnesium L-threonate can cross into the brain and relax the brain. Now, that's really good for people who have too frantic of a brain, like it's going too fast and it needs to relax. I'll use that commonly to help women with anxiety and sleep disturbance. Magnesium is wonderful for diabetics. In fact, if you are a pre-diabetic or a diabetic, you likely are magnesium deficient. So not only is it okay for you, it's usually necessary for you. And you want to work with someone who understands magnesium dosing. In general, it's safe if you have a healthy kidney, but if you have kidney disease, chronic kidney disease, your dosing may need to be adjusted for magnesium because minerals can be a little bit of a challenge on the kidney. A healthy kidney can handle it just fine. You just want to take your magnesium with like a cup of water minimum, but we're supposed to be getting 6 to 8 cups of water in a day, ladies, minimum. So if you're doing that, then taking magnesium with a healthy kidney is perfectly fine. You can take up to 800 to 1,000 milligrams total of all kinds of magnesium in a day. You just have to divide it up and take it with water. Okay. And saying it again, prediabetes, diabetes is a magnesium deficiency almost always. Yeah. And vitamin D3 with K2 is another huge deficiency for pre-diabetics and diabetics. And when I raise people's vitamin D level to 50 or 60, and I get their magnesium level in the top half or top quartile of the reference range, you will see their prediabetes and diabetes get better just from that. I have people whose diabetes is just from those two issues. So that's how critical it is. It's not a nice to have, it's an essential set of nutrients. And then Jocelyn, you and I know that if you're pre-diabetic, diabetic, you already have a higher multiplier risk of heart disease and stroke.
Mhm.
So how nice when you can take D3, K2, eat your calcium, and make sure you get enough magnesium. You're helping your bones and you're helping your heart disease risk.
I did want to point out to Dr. Saxena about the supplement. So I did our Forum Health, we do have our own supplemental website that anyone can go to. But I do want to mention about Amazon because I do see that a lot where patients are looking, to compare prices, but beware of Amazon, right? Because the products may not be created equal. There could be other ingredients in there that could be toxic. And sometimes the products are expired too.
In fact, 10 to 20% of supplements sold on Amazon are likely counterfeit. I have patients so there are people who will get in on this supplement business and they will, who knows what they're doing with the bottles, and then they'll repackage them. And I remember asking a patient a while ago, oh, are you taking, and then I named the supplement that I recommended from our dispensary. And he said, yeah. You mean the blue pill? And in my mind, I'm like, there is nothing that we recommend that is blue colored because that means artificial dye. So I knew he was getting some sort of tampered thing from Amazon, but it had the label that looked very similar to what we sell. So what we're going to do is, I think what we need to do, Jocelyn, is we're going to put links to the individual supplements we recommend in our WhatsApp community after this. Okay, let's not stress you out. Let's keep your cortisol levels down. And when you look at those, we'll also try to put a little, we have a supplement thing that we use internally that tells us who should use it and who should not use it and what kind of dosing. And we can put that with the link to the supplement we recommend. Please note that our recommendations are for the supplement we recommend. You can't just swap it out for something else without having somebody else tell you it's safe as a swap, okay? Please note that our experience is based on what we use, and therefore we feel more confident assuring you safety when it's something that we're using.
Okay, sounds good. So our next question, how can women reduce their risk for osteoporosis and fractures?
Okay, I'll tell you a story that I tell women of what it takes to build bones. And I want you to hear the story so you understand how many components are necessary, okay? Now, if you are trying to build a house, it's a multi-staged experience, right? Like you've got to clear the land, and then you've got to lay the foundation, and then you've got to put up the beams that are the support pillars, and then you frame the house. Like they're phases to building a home. Well, your bones are no different. When you want to build the frame of your body, which is your bones, you need to know it's like a construction project. Okay, so what do you need in this construction project? Well, we've already mentioned that you need minerals. Okay, that's like the concrete. If you have a big bag of concrete or a big concrete mixer truck, that's great. But can you build a house with just that? No. And you cannot do that for bones either. You need the minerals, which is the concrete. Then you need the physical exercise. That's like the laborers. Okay, all the subcontractors who are coming in. The exercise tells the minerals where to go. Okay, so if you have a bunch of concrete, but nobody's going to put it into the house, it's just a bunch of minerals. So you need the physical exercise to guide the minerals into the bone. Okay, so that's exercise, strength training, like we talked about. Okay, now the other thing we need is kind of like the supervising contractor on the scene. Now, that is many times estrogen and testosterone. If you have subcontractors and concrete, I mean, they'll put some stuff in, but if you want it done right, it's good to have the contractor, the supervising contractor who's making sure all the subcontractors are doing what they're supposed to. Now, what guides youthful rebuilding of bones? The youth contractors. Those are estrogen and testosterone. So what's beautiful is that we used to think it was only estrogen, but we've learned that testosterone can also be a contractor. And so if you're a woman who cannot or will not take estrogen, and you have osteopenia and osteoporosis, and you need to build back bone because you're in the red, then we can see if testosterone might be something that could be your supervising contractor. Okay, so we said minerals. And there's one other thing I want to say about materials. So we said minerals is D3K2, calcium, magnesium, and other minerals like phosphorus and all this kind of stuff that you would get. Now, the other thing that's interesting is when you get a bone density test, it's only looking to see how thick your bone is. It does not tell you how resilient your bone is. Okay. Just think of a thick-headed person and a resilient-headed person. They're not the same, are they? Okay. So now, how do you know if your bones are getting resilient or if they're just getting thicker? Let me give you the analogy for our little construction project. If you took a cinder block, which is made of pure minerals, concrete, and you put it at the height of your hip and you dropped it, what would happen to the cinder block? Jocelyn, you want to answer for them? What do you think would happen to them?
It wouldn't be a good outcome.
Yeah, it would probably crack, right? So if all you did was put minerals into your bones, they're thicker, but they may still crack. So, Jocelyn, if we're laying down like the foundation, we're pouring the foundation of a really tall building, they don't only pour in concrete. There's this other thing that they put down first. Do you know what that's called? Rebar.
Never heard of it.
That? Okay, we're doing. My father is an engineer, structural engineering contractor, so that's why I speak in these analogies. So when you want to put a big building on top of a concrete slab, it is not just concrete. There is this metal framework that's called rebar. And it's scaffolding, basically. And what the concrete does is it attaches onto the rebar and it becomes stronger, more resilient. It's not just thick concrete, it's resilient foundation. So the analogy I have for that is a dumbbell. Okay, now a dumbbell is very solid, and just like a cinder block, it's solid. But if I drop a dumbbell from the level of my hip, it's not going to crack when it hits the floor. Why? Because it's made differently. The thickness is different. It's got scaffolding in it. So the equivalent in bone, there's a supplement that we highly recommend called Osteoplex MK7. It's 1 packet a day if you are osteopenic, and it's 1 packet twice a day if you are osteoporotic. And we'll write this stuff down, but those are the minerals plus the rebar. If I want to rebuild bone, I need rebar. Otherwise, I'm just rebuilding cinder blocks. And your bone density might look good, but you need that rebar to make it more like a dumbbell, because the goal is that if you were to trip and fall, hopefully not, but if you were to trip and fall, that you got dumbbells for bones and not cinder blocks for bones.
Are there other things too that can improve bone density other than the minerals?
Well, we said this rebar, which the ingredients in Osteoplex MK7 have silica and choline. Those are the rebar ingredients. Okay, so in addition to minerals and the guide of the D3K2, there's silica and choline in that. And I have taken care of patients on osteoporosis who have osteoporosis who don't want to take the traditional bisphosphonate osteoporosis medications because they're like, I don't like the side effects. I don't like that it's going to last in my body for a long time. So what do? We get them started on this whole construction scene as early as possible. If you have your own if you're premenopausal and you have good hormones, then we just want to make sure your vitamin D, your minerals, and all this is working well, and your exercise. But as you get into perimenopause, menopause, and your contractor goes away, we got to make sure that you got enough contractor, especially if you have osteopenia, osteoporosis, and that we have the physical activity that's cueing the minerals and the rebar to go into the bone to rebuild bone. Okay, we just don't want it to be thick of mineral. We want it to be thick and resilient. Does that answer the question, Jocelyn?
Mm-hmm. It does. And then we can also mention about the purpose of weight-bearing exercise. I know some of my patients have asked me about weighted vests when they go work out. And I think if you have osteoporosis of the spine, that's actually very, very good. It's very difficult to get to when you have osteoporosis of the neck of the femur. It's a very isolated area. So it's very kind of hard to find a weight-bearing exercise that kind of targets that area. I don't know if you've recommended this before, Dr. Saxena, but I've always told my patients, why don't you maybe do some lunges, some squats. Obviously for some of us, we may have to hold on to a piece of furniture when we do a squat, but that tends to center a little bit more on the neck of the femur. But your other typical weight-bearing exercises and muscle strengthening, that can improve your spine and your hip.
Okay.
What's your take on that?
Great question. And let me, before you say more, because I can only remember so much, I'm busy women, listen, if you can't remember so much, it doesn't mean that you're going crazy or you have low estrogen, because I know I don't. And I know I have good testosterone. Sometimes it's just you're busy, but everything isn't a disease. It could just be you're busy. So here's the questions and answers repeated back. Number one, weighted vests. I think they are beneficial only if you keep your core tucked. If you do not tuck your core while you are wearing a weighted vest, you could damage your low back because then your muscles are taking the weight. Okay. So if you haven't figured out how to be strong in your core while you walk, which is not as easy as you think. There's a lot of us that flop our gut, arch our back. We do not have our core tucked in. Mm-hmm. You want to be purposeful with those weighted vests. They're good in terms of like putting weight on your spine and also on your lower body. But if you don't have a tucked core, you're probably having the muscles take a brunt of it while you're walking, and then you're prone to getting muscle spasm. Mm-hmm. So, okay, so just remember that. I think you want to be careful about weighted vests unless you've got a good core. But I agree with you, Jocelyn. If you have a good core and you're doing proper form, then yeah, the extra weight bearing is good for your spine and for your lower body because that weight is being transmitted onto your hips as well too. Now, the next thing, exercises. I'm getting to a point. There's for sure a bunch of people. I like Dr. Stacy Sims and Dr. Vonda Wright. They are orthopedic and exercise physiologists, nutrition physiologists, PhDs that I think give great advice on what I'll call masculine workouts, okay? Masculine workouts are things like push-ups and squats and lunges. It's this word that I've seen come out on social media is bro medicine, okay? It's a very masculine form of get down and do 10 push-ups. Okay, I don't think that's the way a woman's body is always designed to do it. I think there's some women who could absolutely do push-ups, but if your body isn't built for that kind of training, then I invite you to consider yoga or Tai Chi. Okay, Tai Chi is kind of the best entry-level exercise for weight bearing on the lower body and on the spine. And what you do in Tai Chi are these fluid movements where you're extending your arms and shifting your hips in all different directions. You're doing a little bit of a light squat. And if you think about your body, if you just lean, 15 degrees one way and you stick your arm out, you see how your core comes into play? And then your legs have to hold you from toppling over. So Tai Chi is a beautiful, low impact way to start this process. And then you may be interested in what's called Hatha yoga, pronounced Hat yoga in our tradition. Hat yoga comes from the Indian subcontinent, and it is an ancient tradition in doing poses that go through the entire circuit of your upper and lower body, and it works on strength and flexibility. Okay, and why is that important? Because when you fall, your muscles, if they're short and tight, will not be great shock absorbers for your bone. Does that make sense? Your muscles are your primary cushion. And if they have some shock absorption, they'll take some of the impact and then they'll give the rest they can't handle to the bone. So if you tend to be more agile, which you can be from Tai Chi and yoga, you're less likely to fall. And if you've started developing muscles by going in all these movements and directions, then you have a very balanced, symmetric growth of muscles, which is great when they pull on the bones. And then if you are physically fit enough, you can go to masculine strength training as the next step, but be feminine about it. Like, for example, I have this weird elbow. You can see it like this. Do you see how it wings out like this? And what that elbow is a feminine elbow. Because if you put your palms up and then you put them down.
We're all going to start looking at our elbows now.
Okay. Angle. Okay. You can see mine looks like really obvious here. This angle, that angle is a feminine turn on the elbow. And if you do a masculine push-up, okay, your elbows may not work for a masculine push-up. And so for me, I have to turn my hands in a little bit like this for my body to go down, and I use my chest and my back muscles appropriately. If I did it like the way that they teach me, that doesn't look at this angle, I will injure my shoulders. So that's where it's really good to look for. There's a person that I really like on TikTok and Instagram. I'll have to find her and see if I can put her on the thread as well. And she really explains the female anatomy and how to modify exercises based on female anatomy.
Yeah, I think especially in this stage, I'm finding more and more resources and references towards muscle strengthening and less from aerobic during this time and it's true because, our balance changes as we get older and you start continuing your aerobic activity. Now you're at higher risk for falling. So
there's and I will tell you, falling is the thing that you want to pay attention to, right? Like if you don't fall, there is a chance that you'll never have a fracture. Now, I will tell you, there's this theory out there that people say, does the fall cause the fracture, or does a fracture inside cause you to fall? I'm more of the fall causes the fracture theory. So I think if you can prevent from falling, that's the key strategy. Okay, obviously, you can't 100% prevent that. So that's why you want to make sure you have good bones and muscles ready to pad the fall and the agility to try to fall as gracefully as possible to injure yourself as little as possible. And that's where things like Tai Chi and yoga give you a lot of body awareness, so that if you go and hit a curb and you start going forward, your body almost knows how to handle that differently because you've been moving that way. So very true. Preventing the fall is the ultimate root cause type of medicine, right? So balancing exercise. There's also neurologic exercise, which allows you to balance on your toes and understand, how do I keep balance if I have to be on my toes? Or can I balance on one foot and then the other foot? Is there a sidedness? Oh my gosh, I can balance on my left foot, but if I stand on my right foot, I get very wobbly. Okay, well then you're asymmetric and you need to work that neurological muscle bone kind of circuit out.
I'm so glad that we took this time to talk about that, because it's so important. As we age, we have to do everything we can to prevent that fall, because mortality rates are high for women after a fracture. And so we need to do everything we can to build it up now to prevent that from happening. So I'm going to go ahead and change tracks a little bit. We're going to talk about sleep and how menopause affects sleep, and why is sleep so important, especially after menopause.
Oh, goodness. Well, we know how important it is at any stage of our life, but definitely as we're going through these hormone changes. We talked about this quite a bit in a previous webinar, that when progesterone first goes down, that's when we start seeing the sleep disturbances. A lot of times it shows up as an inability to stay asleep. For some women, it's the waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning and can't go back to sleep at all. Those are the classic sleep disturbances of perimenopause, menopause, and it results in us waking up tired, unrestored. And sleep is where our immune system does a huge amount of its rebuilding. So if you're not sleeping and getting into deep sleep, your immune system is weakening. And of course, we need that as we get older to prevent from getting the pneumonia or the COVID that we don't want. The other thing that happens in sleep is it is critical for our hormones to get rest, our brain to get rest, in addition to the immune system. So I find that a very safe way to get sleep improvement is to give women back the progesterone that their ovary isn't using. My God, I would choose progesterone any day over one of these sleep prescriptions that makes you, have altered mental states. Always consider progesterone. It's safe and it's protective. It can be protective against breast cancer to have the progesterone on board. So to me, it's like one of those buy one, get 3 free kind of prescriptions. So I think that's the big, and sleep also, lack of good sleep increases cortisol, and cortisol makes it very difficult to keep a healthy body weight, specifically belly fat. So sleep helps reduce cortisol, which allows you to have a healthy body weight, which then helps you with heart disease risk, dementia risk, all these kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if anyone of our participants are aware of the concept of sleep hygiene and what that means. I didn't run into that until really my later years in primary care. And I was like, what is this all they're talking about, the sleep hygiene? And then, when you start reading about it, it really makes sense because we know the importance of sleep. We need it to regenerate. This is during our deep sleep is when our DNA is going to repair itself, remove all the free radicals, right? So we know how important it is. But what I find with sleep, how I like to say sleep hygiene is a key to creating a romantic atmosphere at home. So the lights get dim. So for my home, it's at 8 o'clock at night. 8 o'clock at night, lights start going down. There's no TV. We're not going to be listening to or watching the news. I usually will get out a book, probably as it gets closer to bedtime, kind of like a boring book. For me, it's a history book, okay? Maybe something from the American history. I'll read that, and then it just kind of puts you into that deep state. If you and your partner are on board the same, I think that's what really works, because you both have to. You can't have one partner watching a loud TV and then show, and then you're trying to get to sleep. But just a very interesting concept. I don't know if you have any personal things you want to add to that, Dr. Saxena, for your hygiene.
One other thing I do is consider blue light. If you have real difficult time falling asleep, staying asleep, you might need blue light blocking glasses for the 3 hours before you go to bed. Caffeine, a lot of people, I would tell you not to have any caffeine after noon if you have issues with sleeping, because caffeine lasts in your body. It takes 12 hours to remove 50% of the caffeine in a drink or whatever else, chocolates. So chocolate and caffeine can definitely interfere. The last thing I think that's really important is don't over drink your liquids in the last couple of hours, because you don't want to interrupt your sleep because you have to pee all night. So sleep hygiene is the best first way. Like, that's basically lifestyle medicine for your brain for sleep. So we can absolutely talk more about that. But I think we have some questions in the chat now that are building up. What do you think? Should we take those for a bit?
We could do, so I know Simone has a question about Combat patch versus estrogen patch. I would like you to post that on our WhatsApp, because I know some of these questions may not be right pertinent to what we're discussing today. And We're already at 1:17, and I know we have a few more questions to get through. So your question is very, very important, but I'd like you definitely to post that on WhatsApp, and we definitely will address that. Same thing, Crudy, you have some questions there too. If you can post that on that would be very helpful for us. We're going to talk about stress management because that is such an important aspect of our life as we get older. Dr. Saxena, what are some things that women can do to help reduce stress?
Oh, goodness. That is the big question, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. The first thing to note is you got to be truthful to yourself and call out your stress load the way it is, as opposed to trying to think that you've got it all under control. I will tell you, and I'm gonna kind of call out my South Asian women because I'm one of them. Okay. I was trained culturally, and I think this is many high achieving women as well. Culturally, we are taught that, gosh, if you have a good family and you have enough money and, that you're not on the streets and you're not, getting beaten up by your husband, well, then you shouldn't be stressed. Just stop complaining. You have a good life. I'm being a little dramatic, but you understand what I'm saying, that women will commonly underestimate how much stress they have. And when you do that, you are denying yourself the opportunity, first of all, to not be as stressed, because then you can't work on something you're not willing to admit is happening. You cannot work on something if you're not willing to admit it's happening. I can't tell you how often, and listen, I did this too. Okay, when I'm pointing at you, I've got 3 fingers pointed back at me. When you're like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. No, I'm not stressed. I can't tell you how many women are like, no, I'm not stressed. That can't be the reason why I'm not sleeping well. No, I'm not stressed. That can't be the reason why I can't lose weight. And I'm like, well, every other blood work thing that we have is showing that you're doing fine, except your cortisol is up, or there's something else. And I'm going to tell you, it's usually stress. It's the lack of awareness of how much stress you have. Now, there's 2 kinds of stress. There's physical stress and psychological stress. Physical stress is something's off in your body and you're not aware, like your hormones might be too low, or, you're constantly cold and you're a hypothyroid and you're like, oh, I'll just wear a jacket. But your body is dealing with an underactive thyroid the whole time. That's a physical stress. Okay. Or if you lived in Antarctica and you literally are cold all the time because you don't have the right gear when you have to go out and do work. Or if you're, work out in the hot sun and you don't get a lunch break, that's physical stress. Okay. Psychological stress is perceived stress from what is happening in the environment. So the stressor, which could be your boss, your husband, your child, your finances, those are the stressors. Stressors actually have nothing to do with stress most of the time. It's the perception of the stressor that is the problem. Because there's people who live in poverty that usually have happiness scores greater than people who are uber wealthy. Okay? They have a stressor called poverty, but they perceive their poverty differently. Whereas the wealthy person can look at a situation and think, oh, I'm so stressed because of XYZ. So it's not the stressor often. It's the stress perception. This is where you have a chance to really flip the script in your body. Because every time you perceive stress from whatever you define as a stressor, your body goes into this hormonal shift, which is like, everybody batten down the hatches. There's a lion or a tiger around here. Adrenal, put out some cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine, insulin, go up, please. We got to start utilizing sugar. Sugar, go up, please. We need to get sugar to the muscles because we probably have to run from the tiger. Estrogen, progesterone, lay back. We don't need babies right now. Just stop it. We don't need you. It is, and you're going to please pardon my French, to have altered stress perception and be in denial leads to a shit show, which you're not willing to deal with. Jocelyn, how many times do we deal with women who are not willing to deal with the fact that stress is the big thing?
We're great denials. denialers, if you want to call it
Yes.
that, denialers.
Listen, this is the tough love. We're on webinar 5. We've been friends.
Mhm.
I'm going to tell you that if something in your physical world is not healing, it is something happening in your psychological world that is causing it, likely. And you really need to look at this stuff, ladies, because that is one of the biggest bottlenecks of hormone health, because we can try to tinker with your estrogen and progesterone and testosterone, but it is like a wild goose chase if your stress levels aren't somewhat contained. You don't have to be a Buddhist monk and be in complete enlightenment to be in hormone balance, but you cannot be, kind of stressed all the time from fear, worry, sadness, and think we can get your hormones under control. You will not be healthy. I guarantee you cannot be healthy until your stress management pillar is optimized. That's truth. I think 90+% of all chronic disease like diabetes, hypertension, dementia, cancer, all are made worse by stress. Stress feeds all of it. Okay.
This kind of leads to our next question too about social health, right? Because having a healthy social life can certainly help reduce that stress, and it does aid in longevity. Why is it important for women to nurture relationships during menopause?
Listen, I want you guys after or during this process to think about the 5 most common people you interact with. Okay? Who is it? Who do you talk to? Is it a coworker? Is it your husband? Is it your child? Is it your neighbor? Is it your best friend? Who are the 5 people that you interact with the most? Because those 5 people's health is the strongest determinant of your future health. So if those 5 people are all health conscious, you are more likely to be healthy because you're hanging around people who are doing behaviors that will influence you. And so if you are around someone who is a bad influence, it becomes that much harder for you to eat healthy or to sleep well. Because like, for instance, this is the joke. Like I live in a condominium and my husband and I are known as the people who don't really stay out past 10 o'clock. And there are people who will, we'll do it from time to time, we'll do it, but it's not like we'll never do it. But in general, if it's not a momentous birthday or it's not, some holiday that we think is worth the merriment and worth the disruption of our sleep cycle for the next 2 or 3 days, because that's how long it takes sometimes to recover from one of these parties for me, we're not doing it. And all of our friends laugh in a nice way, but they accept us for it. But we have found our friends that are the early birds, the people who like to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. They'll meet us out for coffee at 8 o'clock. We'll hang out, we'll socialize, we'll walk, during the beautiful sunrise together. Like we found our people, and I love being around those people because when they're being healthy, I'm like, ooh, I should be healthy. I'm not going to eat this. And I invite you to consider that the 5 people you're around the most influence you heavily. And the research also shows that those 5 people, the 5 people they're around, also has a factor on your health. So if you have an obesity problem, 5 people you're around are likely playing a role. And each one of those 5 people's 5 people, because they're influencing your 5 people who are influencing you. Is that crazy?
Yeah. I just want to share something really quick. My 98-year-old mother-in-law would tell us that her mother told her, now this is going way back, right? Early 1920s, that she would have the saying, and she said, show me who your friends are, and I will tell you who you are. Makes sense?
Show me who your friends are, I'll tell you your future.
Yeah.
Is another phrase that is said. Yes. So ladies, I want you to consider what I just said. Now listen, it's not easy, kind of detangling yourself from people who have historically been fun and joyous. Like I'm still friends with my party animal friends. I just don't, they're not my main 5 though. Okay. Like you don't have to be mean and disentangle, but you really should be very mindful that those are your influencers. And they also play a role in how you perceive stress, because healthy people usually perceive stress in a healthy way. So you want people with healthy minds around you, positive minds, because that also plays a role in your psychological health. This sounds like warm, fuzzy recommendation, and I'm telling you, it's the most powerful thing that I've said today. I'm sure you're looking at like magnesium and thinking that's going to be your game changer. No. You take a solid friend over magnesium any day.
Before we run out of time, though, I do want you to expound on the brain health and, you know, how does menopause impact brain health and memory, and what can women do to improve their mind to be sharp?
Very good. Estrogen and the brain really get along. Okay, not that we want tons of estrogen, but we need a certain amount of estrogen, Barbara Streisand, to excite and to activate the brain. As estrogen falls, your dementia risk increases. Okay, as your body weight increases, your dementia risk increases. So remember we said that progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone are important for some women, for many women, to be able to get optimal body composition. If you want to prevent dementia, which I think is kind of one of the top fears for brain health, then having the right amount of proper lifestyle first. Okay, like you can prevent dementia without ever taking hormones through proper nutrition, exercise, stress management, and sleep. You don't need hormones to do it. But let me tell you, there's very few people who do lifestyle well. Right, Jocelyn? Less than 10% of my patients do lifestyle well. Like they might be really good at nutrition and exercise, but they suck at stress. And they're trying on sleep. But the person who's mastered all four has less need for hormone replacement therapy. For the rest of us, hormones help improve mood. They improve the youthful signal in the brain. And again, those are things that can age the brain if we don't have good thinking abilities, good mental health abilities. And then also because the estrogen, progesterone, testosterone help our body stay healthy, that like keeping inflammation down in the body helps our brain not age as well. So listen, this subject we can go on for another 16 webinars.
Oh, yeah.
But hopefully you got some high level messaging on how you can begin to tweak your life. And we will answer some of these questions that are on here in our group. Maybe Sneha, we can ask you any questions that weren't answered to post them on the group, or remind the attendees to post them on the group so we could put them on there for everybody to benefit from.
Absolutely, we can do that, yes.
Okay, thank you, Sneha. So we've hit time. And I personally wanted to thank you for attending. It's always a joy for us to be able to pay it forward, to share what we're learning from our patients, but from ourselves as well, too. This is what women do well. We are amazing at pushing forward wisdom. Okay? Interesting last thing I'm going to say. You know how we've been trained that women are needed for reproduction? When we look through the evolutionary lens, then, you know, why are we needed after we are in menopause? If we can't reproduce anymore and make babies, then why are we still kept? Anthropologically, we are still kept around because we are really, really good at transmitting wisdom. And wisdom is necessary for survival. Okay, so your main role is not just making babies. It's also to transfer wisdom. And in order to do that, you need to feel good about yourself so that you can actually think about others in a way that's positive and forwarding. All right, I'm going to be quiet. Jocelyn, any last words from you?
No, thank you, Dr. Saxena. Wonderful message for us to end the session on. Thank you.
Okay. Namaste and the best to all of you. We have one last session. Please make sure you can attend on March 16th. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. It was a very beautiful session. Very beautiful one. We, as women, we often think that aging gracefully is only a dream. But the way you simplified and practically told us, it's just about making mindful choices. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. That's right. And graceful should be defined by the woman, not by society.
Bang on.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. Take care. See you soon.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.